Hello, dancers. Do you ever doubt yourself on stage? Do you lack confidence when you're taking a dance class or choreographing a new piece? Well, don't worry. My next guest is the talented Maria Caruso, a renowned dancer, choreographer, and founder of Bodiography. She has performed in various parts of the world and is also the Performing Arts Director Chair at La Roche University. So take a deep breath in, exhale out, and listen into this conversation that will leave you feeling a little more confident. Stick around. Ciao, I'm Anna Harsh, professional dancer, author, and host of The Dance Floor, a podcast that explores the power of dance in our lives through personal stories and interviews with experts. Each episode shares life lessons and advice through the art of dance. Learn how dance inspires confidence, fosters connection, and ways to improve your skills. Whether you are a seasoned dancer or brand new to the art, you'll find something that motivates you in this podcast. So grab your dance shoes and join me on The Dance Floor. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with my friend Maria. Maria, welcome to The Dance Floor. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What is your dance story? Like, how did you start dancing? Were you a child, a young girl starting into dance classes?
Yes, I started my dance journey at the Katanning YMCA in Miss Rita's dance class, and my nonna would bring me to ballet. It's the best.
Yeah.
And I remember she used to have like chairs in the back so everyone would like stay and watch, and my nonna would take me. I took like a ballet and a tap jazz kind of combo class. And this tells you how old I am as a dancer. But when she would check us in and she would use little stars to check us in, she would have a giant cigarette. So like
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, I'm just of that era of like your dance teacher smokes the whole way through class. That just like sometimes boggles me because it's just
That would never happen today.
That would not happen today. Or there's this thing called vaping. So I guess maybe you might have your teacher vape in class, but that would be still kind of weird. I started off dancing just because I think I was just a hyper energetic child and I love to move. My mom was actually a dancer and not professionally, but she semi-professionally. And when she was about 21 years old, she was performing at an outdoor event and the stage broke and she fell off the stage and broke her back. So that was kind of like the end. And she can, thank God, she can walk. And she recovered, but she really never danced that seriously again. I think that was really jarring for her.
Wow.
But she also appreciated dance so much and is a patron of the arts. And, she just thought I should take some dance classes. And so I did. And it was really very recreational from age 3 to 10. And then I got point shoes. I think I don't even think I knew how to like at the time, it was not the kind of program where you actually, I think we tied bows instead of like tying them maybe properly
and getting fitted and all that. Yeah.
I think our point section was like, just a few minutes long. But I got great basics from those classes, but I think they were community classes. So their intention was not to promote a dancer, to go to the Bolshoi. That was not the focus. So I actually quit dancing because my parents, I'd love to tell this story. My parents were basically married and divorced to each other 3 times between birth and age 12.
Wow.
So when around 5th and 6th grade, I moved. And because I moved to the city, I just stopped dancing. And I was dancing, like doing like the musicals and stuff in school, but like I just needed a break from it. And then my parents, while they were together for 2 years, they separated. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to get back into dance. So I went in Indiana, PA. I went back and we moved to Katanning, or to Rural Valley where I'm from. And I just wanted something more serious and more structured. So my mom took me to Educational Dance Center, and that's where I met Luba Takamoto. She was my ballet teacher. And I remember her saying I went to like my first class, and she never said it this way. She was very elegant in how she said it. She was just like, I'm going to give you my words. She's pretty bad, but she's got a lot of good energy and
Yeah.
promise. I could take
Right.
her under my wing. Now, she never said I was bad. She just said something really elegant. But like, if I were to like summarize that, like now as an adult, I think she very much told my parents, like, this kid's got a lot of energy and a lot of heart and a lot of passion,
Right.
and I will take her under my wing. The difference between what I had known and what she was bringing to the table was the fact that dance was a language.
Hmm.
So, this was the kind of school where whether it was tap, ballet, jazz, like you needed to know the origins of it. We had worksheets. You had to know the French vocabulary, the direct translation, what the movement meant. So, that was a journey where I went from years of taking maybe 2 hours of dance a week to now taking 12 to 13 hours and,
Right.
all these private lessons. And then, I was in seventh grade. And within that year, I remember auditioning for the Bolshoi Summer Intensive after a year of training with her. And then I got in. And
Wow.
so that was like a really big deal. And I started doing the summer intensive like circuit. I think I started at Point Park. And, then that kind of became like my addiction. So ballet was like where it was at for me.
Do you think that that was your pivotal moment, like once you auditioned for that company?
No, she made me want to do it forever. I
Okay.
think it was because it was really enlightening. I think I was a little terrified, to be honest. At
Hmm.
that time, those auditions were very, very scary.
Intense.
That was back in the day when most of the American ballet companies were populated with like 60 to 100 dancers. We
Absolutely.
live in a very different time right now. I say this with great sadness that dance and ballet in particular, I feel like is very sadly on the verge of extinction. And I'm a big advocate of supporting and maintaining its integrity and its value to the community.
Right.
And it's really it's an issue of economics in
Yeah.
America. When you look at what's happened post-pandemic and you examine what's happened with the press, this has nothing to do with dance. This is the freedom of speech and the opportunity to have outlets to do that. We live in a highly concentrated digital world where
Yeah.
everything is accessible at our fingertips. And, I always tell people, I'm very old school. Like I don't want to read my newspaper on a Kindle while it's convenient, but I want to get the black ink on my fingers. I want to touch something. I want
Yeah.
to
I
read.
still love the smell of books. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And here's the thing. The last full-time dance critic in America from the Washington Post, or I believe it was Washington Post, that position was severed. And so there's a trickle-down effect. And I'm sure you keep up with, and I do a lot of reading of what's happening in the dance world.
Right.
I think a really wonderful resource is the Ballet Herald. Their editor Sherilyn is absolutely fantastic, and she makes it her like life's work to look at the global perspective, what's happening in ballet, and bringing it like all to you every week. Having traveled the world and been fortunate enough to do that during a pandemic, which is really wild, and that's also a little bit, I'll get back to the age 13 and what happened beyond that. But a lot of people don't recognize that in order to bring great artists to America, it's a huge process. So I brought Cesny Negro from Brazil to
Wow.
Pittsburgh, and it took me 2 years,
I believe it.
my legal team. And part of that is that you need to have reviews, critical reviews from them having been to America, and you need all this evidence to support bringing an international dancer or a company to America. So what happens if nobody is writing about dance anymore? There's no way to support
Right.
bringing international artists in. And that is one of the biggest problems we're having right now, is that it's becoming virtually impossible because there's no dance criticism there aren't many outlets to support or to share the word about
That's
what's
what I was going to say.
happening.
Where, if they do criticize a performance or a dancer per se, where are they going to put those thoughts or words besides maybe blogs or websites? I mean, we need a
Yeah,
substantial
I
thing
think
across
a
the
lot of
board.
people are trying. I mean, this is not for lack of effort. It's just
Right.
I've talked to a lot of writers who are like,
Yeah.
I have a blog, but I used to write full time for this publication, and I don't that was my full time job. So
Wow.
now I've had to change my full time job. Maybe I went from being a journalist to going back to school, and now I'm a full-time nurse. So I'm not full, and I'm still going out and seeing shows, but I'm now doing a blog that's not compensating me for
Right.
my art and my craft, which I think there is a beauty and an elegance in journalism.
Yes.
And it's just like our art and our craft as dancers, it's the same thing. I mean, I always say they're choreographing words, and they're giving not there's something about, I think people don't realize there's dance criticism, which is, let me give you a book report on what happened, right?
Right.
And it's like one thing, and I think that I think in smaller regions, like,
Mhm.
you see that kind of writing, but like a true dance critic is not just going to give you the synopsis, and make you feel like you were there, that you understand what happened in that moment in time, but give you, a sense of why there were impactful moments, or why there were moments that were missing. And I think the word criticism just terrifies people. I teach this when I teach dance composition 1 and 2, that we call them crits, right? But we learn how to communicate effectively without saying, I didn't like this, or I don't like that, or I like that.
Right.
There's no I like or I don't like. I appreciated this, or I needed more of,
It's
because
that feedback. It's the
right.
feedback that we're wanting.
And we're not comparing, because dance is like, I feel like, you can't, this is why I have a very difficult time with competitive dance, because I believe in competitive ice skating, because when you put a program together, it has to have so many specific elements, like 2 triple axels, one sow, triple sow cow. You have to have like these elements that are
Right.
in a
A
technical element
checklist.
program. I can't sit and compare a tap dance to a point piece to a jazz dance. Like, those are just all different. It's like apples and oranges, right?
Yeah, they're
Now,
different genres.
if you gave me a basket of apples and said, like, I think probably more like the Youth Grand Prix, where you're looking at a ballet competition, and it's a little bit more, there are some means for comparison. I think that's a little bit different, but I think sometimes in the competitive world, and so, not in all competitions, so not like, and I do think there's value to competitive dance and there's performance quality, there's getting on stage, there's the idea of community, there's the convention of bringing people together for classes. So I'm not like completely downplaying it. Personally, for me, it's really, and having had been a judge, I just could never understand how I'm supposed to adjudicate with having no criteria.
Right.
Right.
Same.
Like, or like, if the 5 elements are performance quality, but I'm doing 3 different genres.
It's difficult to enunciate and to put a pinpoint on those types of events, because as a judge, and I've been in that position as well, and I got out of the judge circuit because it was just too challenging. Like, you're right. It's different genres. I mean, do we have a checklist? Kind of, but they're like a vague checklist. It's not the same checklist like you were saying in skating, where they have the same checklist. Everybody's being judged on the same turn, the same jump, the same skate kind of program. Whereas in dance, it's like, well, they could have a leap in it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they have a triple pirouette. Maybe they don't. Everybody's different in the way they choreograph. And if they don't have those elements in it, does that mean they're less than, or does that mean, it just didn't make sense to me. You're right.
And I also think, and this is interesting because I've recently become a winemaker, and I was actually with my winemaker on Sunday, and we were just kind of talking about the palate, right? What's
Right.
palatable, what people like, what people want. Some people just want something that's easy drinking, that doesn't have a lot of complexity, that just is great, not super expensive, but just something that's easygoing, but some people enjoy the culinary arts, want something a little more bold, something complex, something that goes along with the complexity of the meal that they've prepared. And this is one thing I love about dance. The one thing I love about wine is that there really always is something out there for everyone.
Yes.
And that's what I find when it comes to wine, right? in dance, what my biggest fear is that because it's the economics are making it so difficult to keep dance alive, because a lot of people, I think, during the pandemic really learned that they can appreciate dance at home and on their devices, but there is something so different about being in a theater and like smelling this, like the smell, the space. And I on Sunday went to see my friend's son was in Les Mis, and it's just like I was thinking to myself, oh my God, it's been like a couple weeks since I've been in a theater, and I was
Right.
like, oh my God, it's just so good to be here. And I just think if you don't come from that world, like you don't know and you don't appreciate. Also, from an economics perspective, it has become almost virtually impossible for the average household to be able to afford seeing dance. And
Yes.
I look at this across the board, across the country. Ticket prices, I also do a lot of work in the for-profit Broadway realm. So, when I look at average ticket prices and I look at gross sales on Broadway, I would say that this year, for the first week, the gross ticket sales last year were in that 50 million, in the $50 million range.
Mm-hmm.
This year, same week, 25, down by 50%. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, a lot of people just can't afford
Right.
access.
Well, and dance is expensive in general. It's from the costumes to the leotards to the classes, the shoes. That's something if you're not in the dance world, you have to understand, one. And two, that's why I'm so thrilled that when my company goes and performs for these festivals, many of these festivals are free to come and watch our performances, and you get to see dance live. And you're right, that is quite different from your device or watching it on television. If you're not there, you're not experiencing it kinetically, like from an energy point of view. You feel the energy from the dancers, you feel the energy in the crowd. It's an experience that everybody should be privileged to. And so I'm really proud that many of our performances are free to come and watch and experience and enjoy. And I do a lot of free things online as well, so they can at least experience it a little bit, through Zoom or, my platforms that I teach in. But you're right, being there in person in a theater or on a stage, not only as a dancer to experience it with other dancers on stage, but also seeing it and watching it. I think everybody should at least once in their life, try for that, for sure.
Yeah, and Bodiography has been doing a lot of that kind of work. Now that I have a new artistic director, I think a lot of people still don't know that I am bicoastal. So I live in Los Angeles and I also have a home in Pennsylvania. I travel back and forth every week.
That's
and
crazy.
During the each semester. So, when we're on break, then I sometimes kind of hold back. And I work in tandem because I'm still involved with Bodiography.
And tell us a little bit briefly what Bodiography is. Like,
Sure.
tell my listeners, who is Bodiography and why did you, start that company?
So I'm going to just go back to where I left off at 13, Bolshoi. So basically, I really got involved and I just was like, I could not get out of the dance studio. It was just, it went from 13 hours to like 16 hours. And I then evolved. I went to La Roche. I was the first like student at La Roche to be dual enrolled. So I was doing high school and college classes at the same time. I really wanted to be a doctor. I think that for me, things were just motoring along. And by the time I was 15, I had started college. I was dancing still in Indiana, but I was dancing in Pittsburgh and at La Roche. At 15, I was at a new high school. I took my senior year in high school and my freshman year in college all in the same year. So from age 15 to 16, during that year, I took 2 years of high school and I graduated high school at age 16 in a brand new high school. And I had already had a year of college under my belt.
That's insane.
I very quietly knew that I had an eating disorder.
But you're right. I mean, and that all feeds into our topic for today, like confidence. How do you, coming from all of that and your parents being divorced and married back and forth and struggling with that eating disorder, but yet have this passion and love for dance. How did you gain that confidence? Because you're such an amazing, beautiful dancer today and have so many acclimates How did you make that leap? Like, what can we tell this next generation?
Well, I think that it goes back to being old school. It just was a work ethic. I
Yeah,
just didn't believe my parents were like, you gotta keep trying. You just
right,
can't, there's no stopping, right? You
right,
don't just stop. You don't give up. My late father-in-law wrote a book called How to Fail Successfully. And I realized that was ingrained in me. When I met my husband, I realized that our backgrounds, that we had so many parallel things being told to us, which is, failure is not a bad thing. That learning how to succeed is embracing failure and learning how to take the next steps. And
right.
George Clooney last night was giving some sort of lecture. I just so happened to be scrolling through somewhere and saw this, but he was talking about the same thing. Better to have gone back in time at 65 years old and say, wow, I tried, but I failed and it didn't work. Or then to go back and say, well, I never tried, so I'll never
Right.
know. So, I think it's just perseverance. And I think that work ethic is everything. And I teach this to my students because I had to give up a lot.
Yeah.
I had to make the choice like, oh, okay, well, you're on tour. We did a tour of Cinderella and it was like the same weekend as prom. So it was like, okay, well, I can go to prom, but I can't go to the afterglow. There were so many different like
Yeah.
ways to work around things
You
and things that
sacrifice so much as a
I
dancer.
sacrificed a lot. And I'm not saying that it's for everybody. I think that dance is a calling. I
Yes.
don't think it's for everyone. I don't think anybody should pursue it professionally and pursue it without knowing that it is a long and arduous road, that it is a discipline. It requires structure. It requires respect, and it requires your full attention. And I don't think people realize this, but
No.
you're using your whole self. So it's not like you're playing a violin and if something goes wrong, you can be like, oh, well, I guess my string is broke, right? When you're
Right.
dancing, you don't get a broken string, It's like it doesn't happen that way. You have to be in control and you have to be cognizant of what's happening with your whole body. Now, when you're talking about your whole physicality, there's an emotional side to self, right? And there's a battle going on and it's so hard to not dig in if there are mistakes made and if you're failing in real time. But for me, that is why I love the live arts, because it's like problem solving on stage. When you see an error.
Well, you learn from it. Like you were saying, it's a failure that you're learning from and you grow from it. And that gives us confidence.
Exactly, but it makes you recognize that you're real.
I just don't think people that aren't in the dance world understand what it takes to even make it to the stage. Just the thousands and thousands of things that came before even taking the stage, putting the shoes on, putting on the costume and the makeup. It's a whole bit from head to toe, inside out, like you were saying. It affects us mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, everything.
We tend to get within our own world and we don't really branch out. And so going back to why I started Bodiography, I went to Florida State. I graduated at 19 with my BFA and I went to start my career at Dance Theater of Harlem. And, I just couldn't find myself. I didn't know where to turn at the time. It was either ballet, modern, or jazz. Like there was no fusion of them, and I still couldn't give up my point shoes. I went to Dance Theater of Harlem for a summer intensive and I stayed a bit longer than I had expected, but then I did leave, but I felt at home. And, I was one of a few white women in a black company. And I just felt like, oh my God, my body is great here, and they were going through a lot of economic hardship, the company at the time, which then folded for about 10 years until Virginia Johnson, took the company back, which is now under the leadership of Robert Garland, who I remember, was one of my teachers. And, I remember doing a lot of his work while I was there. I realized that like, okay, this is what I want. This is what a dance company should be like, right? There should be a level of rigor and technical prowess, but also inclusivity and seeing different bodies on stage all
That
working
variation is great to
together.
see together. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I then graduated and I started teaching in New York City, but I started a company in New York in 2000 called Bodiography because I wanted it to be about body diversity. And I started off with like 13 dancers, mostly Juilliard grads, NYU grads. And I I was 19 years old living in New York City. I sold my car. Like, to give you an example, I did an Italian ballet for like my first show in Brooklyn. It was sold out, but the Italian ladies at my aunt's all sent cookies up, pizzelles.
Of course they did.
Of course, because I had to have a cookie table at my first show in New York. So like they had, I think, like two cars. My nonna, my nono, my mom, everyone like hauled up to New York City like an entire cookie table.
That's
and
hilarious.
It's so funny because this year I finally at Bodiography Center for Movement, which is my school in Pittsburgh, during Nutcracker time, it's the land of the sweets. And this year we did Messiah to honor our late president at Roche, who had passed away. And that was her favorite ballet. So instead of Nutcracker, we did the Messiah this year, which is one of my works that she loved. And I said, well, we still need to celebrate like the Nutcracker, the land of the sweets. And I said, did everybody have a favorite cookie from their heritage, And so we did the great Bodiography bake off because none of the kids, like, they're like, I don't know, like chocolate chip. And I'm like, what? I'm like, come on, you got to have a cookie that is a special, dig deep. And so everyone had to come with a presentation of a cookie. They had to go to their grandparents. They had to go and bake and come back with a presentation of what the cookie means to their culture. And we all passed them all around. Everyone went all out, and it was just so lovely.
It's fun. Yeah.
I brought tortesica, and we all like just shared, and it was awesome. And I start Bodiography in New York City, selling my car, cookie table at my show. I clearly wasn't sustainable in New York City. So I had moved back to Pittsburgh and I started teaching. And then, so in those 2 years from 2000 to 2002, I got my space, which I'm in now, and I built my school. And then Bodiography was dual based for a while. So I was actually doing what I do now, commuting back and forth between New York and Pittsburgh every week to run the company of dancers that I had there, but the school that I had in Pittsburgh that I had just started. And then I hired dancers in Pittsburgh, and I kind of slowly, for a couple of years, the dancers in New York came to Pittsburgh or were toured with us, but I disbanded the New York side of things just because it was too
it's hard.
It was expensive and too hard. Yeah. And then we were really based in Pittsburgh. So for the past 22 years, we've been based in Pittsburgh, and our mission has been about focus on health and wellness in the arts in general, in dance. But the belief for me is that it's a choreographic responsibility to make multiple bodies on stage make sense. And so I love I have two men in my company, one who's like 5'4" and one who's 6'1". So I love even pairing them together sometimes because I feel like that's that is realistic. We are not all cookie cutters.
It creates something really interesting on stage too to watch.
Absolutely. So Bodiography, we are very blessed. We have been very successful, and inside the brand, not just having a dance company, of a season of performing choreographic works, restagings of masterworks between the divide of ballet and modern contemporary dance. It's not like that everything's all together. We cover everything. So we've partnered with the Martha Graham Dance Company. So Graham, we've done Bodiography artists have had the Graham Company restage Steps in the Street on us.
Beautiful.
I've staged works and created works of my vocabulary for Graham dancers, and we come together and we collaborate. And so We'll see Point Shoes in a Maria contemporary ballet piece. You'll see the Graham Graham Company do authentic Graham works. You'll see the Graham dancers do Maria's work. You'll see Bodiography dancers doing Graham work. So for me, it's really about the spirit of keeping the traditional forms alive through Bodiography, also celebrating the choreographic works in the catalog that I've done, but also inviting other choreographers and other cultures into our space. And more recently, since I have, I had a pivot in my career during the pandemic, I started to get into the commercial arts. And before that, what prompted that was that I very much into social justice, which is also what La Roche University is about. And so aside from having a dance company and a dance school at the time, I went back and I got a master's degree in professional leadership and management for nonprofits. I then began my journey again at La Roche University, where I chair the performing arts department. So Bodiography and La Roche University work together in tandem. We have a college preparatory ballet program where high school students can get college credit. And then we have a BA program. And I hire a lot of our graduates, not always, but I do. And so there's a lot of cross-pollination there. And then in my early part of my years at La Roche, I was very interested in health and healing in the community and also physical fitness. So I created 2 programs, Bodiography Fitness and Strength Training System, which is now available on Amazon Prime. So it's how to get the ballet body without taking a ballet class. So it's a mat-based fitness class that gives you, kind of the long lean lines. It has the kind of the Pilates focal points of neutral alignment, and things like that. And so a lot of dancers use that to complement their training and
Perfect.
a lot of places around the world. And then I also was very interested in how could I use my art and my craft, my choreography to heal populations plagued by disease or hardship. And so I created the Bodiography Dance Movement Therapy System, which is a choreographic algorithm to help with health and healing. So we've touched populations, cohorts of women with breast cancer, childhood bereavement, childhood cancer, Parkinson's disease, heart disease. So I've done a lot of work. I call it artistic philanthropy, where I would create a ballet and fundraise to have the ballet created, and then all of the proceeds would go to research.
That's huge. Are you ready to take your dance skills to the next level? Do you dream of performing on stage in front of a live audience? Well, now's your opportunity. Allegro Dance Company is always looking for new dancers to join our group. We're seeking talented, passionate, and dedicated individuals who are ready to showcase their skills and make a name for themselves in the dance world. Allegro has been entertaining audiences for over 30 years with dynamic showcases of authentic Italian folk dances, along with jazz, ballet, and yes, even a touch of ballroom. We're known for our high-energy performances and innovative choreography. So what are you waiting for? Join Allegro today and be a part of history. Contact us on our website, allegrodancecompany.net, or stick around and chat with us after this performance. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Dance with Allegro.
I started off doing rock ballets. That's what I became known for. Then I started off doing these ballets about patients and real people's experiences. And then in 2012, I started getting into the fine arts and really focusing on partnership with other dance companies. And at that point in time, right before the pandemic, I was like, I still want to grow. I want to broaden. I was trying to expand here in Pittsburgh, and I was getting ready to blow the roof off of a building in the North Shore and do a theater and all this stuff. And I said, the one thing I haven't done is I haven't worked in the commercial market.
Right.
So I said, let me go ahead and try and create a show for the Broadway market. And I was commissioned to do an 80s dance review by a gentleman named Anthony Wilkinson in New Jersey, which I mounted there in I think it was like 2018. And it had a couple of successful runs. It was reviewed for Off-Broadway. I got an Off-Broadway run, but then the pandemic happened. So life and dance is like climbing mountains. It's like a lot of people don't realize that if you were going to go climb Everest, once you get to the top, you've got like a minute, maybe a minute, all that work, 3 weeks of climbing. And you don't know that people don't often recognize that it's not the going up that's the difficult part. It's the coming down that's the most dangerous. So no matter how you slice it, the peaks are short-lived.
Yes.
They're beyond memorable, but they're short-lived. You don't just sit at the top of Mount Everest and just sit there for like a day. It doesn't work like that.
No, it's the dance world.
If you are ingrained with the idea that on the way there to the summit and on the way down are long, difficult, and arduous, then you get to enjoy the summit so much more.
Right.
For me, I just kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, we're shut down. There's nothing we can do. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be the first to open Off-Broadway. And luckily, I was one of the people who was in the only 2 theaters that were opening Off-Broadway. And at the time, I had all my dancers. I decided to use Pittsburgh-based dancers from my company, and that we auditioned a New York cast that was going to take over after our 3-month run, summer of 21. Well, at the time, my cast was too big. So my producer was like, do you have, is there another show? My husband said, you did that solo metamorphosis in Israel and you toured with it. And everyone loved it. And it's the story of what we're all feeling. It's the story of this woman being born into the world. She tries on all these different dresses that represent turning points in her life or different emotions. And she realizes that she's the sum of everything. This is like, people need this. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot send this to them. I've listened to my husband. I sent it to my producer and he was like, I love it. Great. And like, what are we going to do with the 80s ballet? And he goes,
right.
My friend who has the other theater, let's pitch it to her.
Yeah.
So I pitched it to another producer. So I had now 2 offers, 3-show-a-week run. So that's 6 shows
crazy.
a week. I'm the lead in the 80s review and I'm the soloist in this. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can be the first woman to star in 2 different shows on the same night at 2 different theaters. I can do this. I can make this work, right? I can, yes, dream big. I said, I can only do it for like 3 months in the summer because that's like my time where I'm not teaching. I can fly the dancers up. We can get the New York cast ready. I can step away from rearview mirror and I can finish my career and be like, okay, done with metamorphosis. We did it. Conquered the world. That did not turn out to be what happened. Actually, both shows did very, very well. The 80s review actually outgrew the theater. We paused the show. We moved it to a bigger theater off Broadway and it had a short-term run. But I decided, even though I had a New York cast, that we actually integrated the cast together. We did perform and then I closed the show just because it just felt like too much to be running everywhere. And then very unusually, my solo show got an extended run. So I did 6 months off Broadway and then I did a global tour. I picked up a global tour after that. So I did 5 months on the road. And that was just really a lot because when you don't have a swing and you're by yourself, and I was in Brazil and I broke my ribs and doing 2 shows in one day and had to keep going. And, you have a medical team and most people were like, Maria, people cancel shows when they have broken ribs. I'm like, not me.
I get it. I feel that because when I'm performing, I'm like, there's no other Miss Anna that's going to take this place. Who's going to run this show? Who's going to do this? We really need swings in for ourselves. But I don't think even if we had them, I don't think you and I would ever do that.
Yeah, no. That's just
our work ethic. And it goes back to what you were saying before. It's just how we grew up and it's that ingrained in us.
So say though, it's not super healthy. I would not say that I want my students to be like, hey, I have 2 broken ribs. Yeah, sure. Go dance and go ahead and inject yourself.
Yeah, I'll be right here off stage waiting for you.
Yeah,
no, that's not how it really works.
That is old school hardcore. Right. And I don't think that's necessarily healthy. And I will admit that. But, for me, I was just at the end of my tour. I just had a couple shows left. So I thought I could
push through.
So after the global tour, I got picked up to go in the West End of London, which is like the pinnacle, right? So, I think in my experience too, some of the shows in the West End are just so stellar and spectacular. And you do see a lot of actors now in the big shows that leave the show and then just go kind of do a run of something in the West End. I was very fortunate. I did Metamorphosis in the West End, and then my producer filmed it. It was on Broadway on demand, and it got picked up on Amazon Prime. So if anybody wants to see it, you can see my last performance. And now I'm kind of in the middle of deciding if I want to pursue an offer to start to do the sequel to my show in the West End. But in all this time and everything that I've done, 2022 to 2024, so like in the past year and a half, a lot of things have changed, and still, even in my building that I was expanding in the north, costs are still astronomical. Our project was severely over budget. My husband got relocated to Los Angeles, so that project was put on pause because I also believe that it's about being smart about your choices, particularly the arts. And there's so many theaters that are shutting down because of the same problems. Overhead is expensive. They can't populate the space. So, for me, it wasn't wise to put a project way over budget that may not be sustainable and to make the move to Los Angeles to be dual based. So it's a lot farther than Pittsburgh to New York, or even I think sometimes I feel like Pittsburgh to Europe. It's been really interesting. Since I've been here, I've started 2 film companies. During my time here, I'm usually acting, I'm pivoting in my own career. I'm still creating new work. I have a show that I just got funded from the Heinz Endowments to do a show to a composer who I love, Kevin Keller, has a new album out called Evensong. So I am premiering that in 2024 in November, and then that will take an off-Broadway run. So I'm excited about that. And Bodiography is the company that's going to be performing that work. And I focus now at Bodiography on all of our outreach efforts. So I have a thing called the Outerburg Tour that's run through my other production company called M Train Productions, where we go into smaller communities and we're able to bring big works free of charge. So I, like you, am very passionate about bringing the live arts to communities who don't have access and make it completely available to them. So I handle all the outreach and all the international kind of work. Lauren Scrabelak is our artistic director, so she curates the main season. So Bodiography is performing at the Kelly Strayhorn Theater, doing some of my works and other artists' works like Lauren, April 12th through the 14th. So that's coming up. I feel like we're on a crusade in the live arts, and I feel like the more people we can get out to support dance, to make it accessible. One thing we've been really trying to do as an organization is also look at like cost effectiveness when it comes to even ticket prices. A lot of times I see some shows coming into town or, and the costs of the tickets are just so astronomical that no family could afford to go and see them. Right. And the reason we know that is actually evidence-based and data-based is because we're seeing in the Outerburg tours that we're populating theaters. So there is a huge issue. And a lot of people that come, when you get 500 people to show up to a show in a rural community, then you understand that it's like, oh, well, this is accessible. I don't have to drive to the city and I can't afford $100 a ticket to go to the ballet.
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's about re-educating the community about providing opportunities for young people or just everybody. I believe that dance is for everybody and everybody. It's truly something that accessible, universal. And I think that's why our platform is so broad, kind of what I was saying earlier. Is it like we're not like just a ballet company. We don't do the classics, but we do neoclassical work and contemporary ballet, but we also do hardcore modern. Like we do a little bit of everything, and we try to do it really well with a lot of integrity. And we educate the same way. We still teach dance as a language. Some kids will come to our school and be like, yeah, I don't want to do this. Like, I just want to come and like learn to dance to the physical side of things. I don't want to be bothered with the notebooks. And so it's not for everybody, Right. But we have a student base that's very devoted, that is very loving, and we are a community. This is how I teach. This is what I think. This is what I believe. It may not be for you. And you know what? We can still be friends. And I can make a recommendation because there are a variety of other schools around in the community that could be a better fit. For me, I want dance to survive and thrive.
Yeah, so that's the main goal.
I believe that I have a responsibility to my art and to my craft and to keeping it alive. And if I didn't look for sustainable models, and if I didn't branch outside of my little sphere of that original passion for ballet, if I didn't broaden, then I wouldn't have the resources to create a sustainable model and
affect others in your community. I mean, because you stepped outside of your bubble. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do and strive for, is to step outside of our bubble and make a difference in our community. And the vehicle to make that difference is movement and dance. Maria, we're going to take a really short commercial break. And when we come back, can we just talk about a little bit of advice for those next generation of dancers? It takes, like we talked about, a lot of confidence to do what we do and to keep growing as an artist in these different venues, writing and directing and movies and all kinds of things. It takes confidence at the very heart of that. So when we come back, let's just talk about a few tips and ways that they can maybe, help boost their confidence. Did you know Allegro Dance Company offers various classes online, from dance to fitness? Yes, now you can enjoy a relaxing yoga class or book a tarantella class for your entire family. You don't have to leave your home anymore to enjoy these great and unique classes. So what are you waiting for? There's no more excuses. You can work at your pace. Book your class. Choose your time. Visit our website today, allegrodancecompany.net, and let your dance journey begin. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Maria, and we've been talking about careers and all of the things and ways that she has been affecting not only her community, but globally, how she's affected dance and the dance world and opportunities that you've given to all kinds of dancers and audiences out there of your own work and your body of work that has affected the audience in different ways. But as dancers, we were talking about getting up on that stage takes a lot of confidence. So what are some exercises or what are some things that you're like, this is what helps me to know what I'm doing on stage? Is it mirror work? Is it improvisation? Is it just practice? Like, what are some tips that you would say this works?
I think I look at that in a really different non-dance way. So I started with my company a couple of years ago when we were all going to be performing off Broadway and, we were really trying to bond. And here I am, 20 some years older than some of these dancers. I always would tease them. I would be like, I think it's Mariah Carey that has like a chase lounge and like her dancers like pick her up and like take her around.
Yes.
Like that makes and they're all young and I'm like, this is how I kind of feel. But I feel like in order for me to feel good with you holding me up and for you to feel good holding me up, we need to find some equilibrium within each other. And that's not in the studio. So we used to go and take an hour walk once a week and just talk and ask each other questions. I think that to be a dancer, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to be good within yourself as a person. Right. And I think that there's a lot that goes into that. There is like the health and wellness side of things of the body. Your body is your instrument. So, like everything from what you eat and like how you nourish yourself. I just feel like you've got to eat for yourself, for who you are, and you just got to have healthy habits and you've got to take care of your sacred space. That's first and foremost from a physiological perspective. The right amount of time carved out for exercise, the right amount of time carved out for food, and then the right amount of time carved out for like your emotional health, spirituality, like whatever that is. So I think that just in general, sometimes everyone's church is around a group of friends or, a Sunday dinner. Like, so my point is that I do it in many facets of my life. It's a weekly date night with my husband. It's seeing my kids or like carving out time every month for the people I love and, making sure that my career and my dance life does not monopolize my real person life.
Right. We're people first and foremost. Which I know a lot of audience members don't see us that way sometimes because I think they think that we're machines. Like, because we just go out on stage, we punch it out, and there's just no way my leg can do that what her leg is doing. So we're human beings first and foremost. And you're right. We need to nourish our mind, body, and spirit. So I love the tip about taking a walk or being with your fellow dancers or friends and that sort of thing to get to know each other. I think that really does help boost confidence as a group, as a company, because I do that with my dancers after we have rehearsal. I'm like, let's sit down, let's have a meal together and just get to know each other. And, what's your name? Where do you come from? And, what do you like to do? I think just getting to know people, networking really does build confidence. And if you have that trust with each other in the space, then I think the confidence grows because you can say, hey, can you watch this combination and give me a little feedback? You trust that person then and feel more confident. Oh, I can fix these things before I take it out on stage. Dance is challenging and it's an art form that needs support. We still need to go to those physical shows and see the dancers in live performances, hear the music, clap for them, support them financially. I always say there's many ways that we can support dance companies and it's not just by clapping, although we appreciate that. Yeah. Especially since the pandemic, like not hearing applause for a long time was like, what is happening with my life? But we need more than that applause. We need to be supported financially. And also, if we have those new ideas, give those opportunities a chance. Somebody open the door for you to say, we love that show. Yeah, come into our theater and do that. So I think we need more people to say yes to these ideas that we might have, these dreams that we want to build.
I think sometimes we forget it takes a community. It's not just about self and it's like my success is not because of me. It's because of the people around me who lifted me up. And I think in dance, one of the things I find most disheartening, and one of the things that I have loved about traveling the world, and I will say this, it's something I don't see in other countries, and a very American thing where, like, when I'm in Brazil, it's like everybody in this company is going to this company, see their friends in the next show.
Yeah,
And
it's very supportive.
everyone really cross-pollinates and supports, and everything is like populated and it's full and it's exciting. I appreciate so much what you do because I think it's so necessary. That dance in other countries, when I go to the Carmiel Festival and there are, 200,000 people in this small town in Israel celebrating dance, it's because everybody dances culturally, does folk dance in Israel from like birth to age.
Yes.
So they appreciate not just folk dance, but dance in general, right? In America, we appreciate sport, right? And that is the dance of our country in many ways. And it's not to say that people don't appreciate dance. It's just that it's different. Russia, there are cultural dances. Russia, Ukraine, Italy, Spain. I go to Argentina. It's like the tango. So I think because America is such a melting pot, and I think that because in America, our younger people, or our younger communities are not so tied into that folk culture of their own ethnicity, that there is a lack of support for just dance. Because I grew up with I Campagnoli, and it was like, you did the cultural dances. Everyone danced at the family reunion. Everyone sang at the family reunion.
Yeah, it's how we live. It's how we celebrate. It's how we pray. It's how we do all kinds of things.
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to like the culture, like I'm culturally Catholic, but also I say that culturally because I feel like when I go sometimes home and I go to church, I see my family. So like it's like a reunion. It's a way to connect. And I feel like that is a dance and a celebration. Sometimes even like, when you're in church, it is a celebration. There's music, there's something going on, there's artistry happening. And then there's also like prayer. But I do think that that is something that's getting lost in our communities. So just like I did with my students with the great Bodiography bake-off, just trying to understand what their cultural identity is through a cookie is important, because, the next thing is like, what's culturally important to you through dance. And, I've been very fortunate. One of my best friend is a world champion Irish dancer, and I've gone to Ireland and I've gone all over the world, and I've seen dance all over the world. I've seen it heavily populated at outdoor venues, indoor venues, theaters, and I don't see the same thing in America. No. And that saddens me. Whatever I can do to raise awareness and give rise to what is happening in the arts community, the live arts sector, I feel like I would do,
I mean, that's what we're doing too. If I don't keep teaching these dances here in this country, in the United States, after my generation, you won't see them anymore. So that's what prompted me to write my books, have my documentary. It can live in all the libraries across the United States and Canada and all of that. But you're right. We just need to keep the next generation informed that there's a whole nother piece of dance that they can tap into and maybe feel at home, or maybe find out a little bit more about themselves because they've connected with a culture and dance. Even if it's not their own culture, like I'll dig into a tango, love it. Love it. And it brings you so much joy. So find something that you can culturally connect with that will bring you a little more joy, and maybe build your confidence in that way too. I just think that, you're right. Networking and that community building, we keep talking about it.
Absolutely.
That's where it's at. Maria, I appreciate your time. Please come back, and hopefully I can come and see you in California. Maybe we can do something together there. That'd be fun.
I would love that. That'd be amazing.
Please and thank you. Okay, everyone. Thanks for listening today to The Dance Floor. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Anna Harsh. Until next time, keep moving on the dance floor.